Amir and I are here. We're doing a quick thing today, just taking a look at one thing, and I'm going to share. We're doing remote sensing, quick one, and then next week we're doing an advanced remote sensing project. So that's the intro. This is not formal remote viewing, it's just looking at map stuff and seeing what is there for locations.
Okay, so a general sense of the network, very much so a network. This is not limited, by the way, to let's say the continent of North America. The same structure exists in other continents. Generally speaking, we've got the presence of highways. Many of these sites did not start out for, let's say, reverse engineering of foreign technology, quote unquote foreign. So we've got the legacy of very, very long highways from the, let's say, 50s onwards. So with the advent of the jet engine, these became more proliferated. Large hangars, and then taking advantage of the terrain. Now, usually there's going to be a presence of mountains for obvious security reasons. So again, hardly any of these bases started out as reverse engineering and pure research sites. And so, due to the history that this planet has gone through, namely the Cold War and the threat of nuclear attacks, these facilities were conceived to be resistant to such, let's say, types of bombardment. So, with the exception of a direct hit, they would pretty much survive these kinds of weapons. Advanced excavation, and also, I mean, they started out with regular civil engineering techniques, but then more advanced approaches were developed towards creating structures that are resilient. One of the things that is a signature of these more advanced, let's say, civil engineering and architectural approaches would be the elimination of straight lines and angles from the structure. These basically concentrate force in singular points, which becomes overwhelming in terms of forces and load towards any kind of physical structure, while curves more easily distribute the flow of waves or shock waves or load for that matter, static load. But in terms of dynamic loads and shocks, curvatures are much more suitable. Again, we see this reflected in nature over hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Curved surfaces seem to be more suitable. Now, as time went on, this type of approach was then more widely implemented in major projects, such as the creation of dams, where it was realized that curved structures require significantly less construction material. They can withstand significantly greater force. So the conception of such approaches come thanks to the militaries of the world. Presence of mountains is preferred. So you have natural geological features towards enhanced resilience of these structures. Another would be avoiding the the weakness of the crust of the earth. So they would try to avoid major earthquake zones. I know that there are locations now to the west, basically California, which has a major weakness point. They are keenly aware of this risk. The reasons for locating these bases are more important than susceptibility to earthquakes. But that would be one of the types of thing that would be considered for choosing these locations. The older spots perhaps have access to far more ancient facilities, so they had to be there. There was no freedom of choice. So these are just common sense patterns. Long runways, so let's say the base of ancient lakes, these become completely flat and are suitable for emergency landings and so on. We've heard many examples of these. Not all of these bases are active all at the same time. Some just maintain a skeleton crew but can be brought up to full functionality in an incredibly short period of time. So functionality, let's focus on what is on the screen right now. Of course, maintaining the safety of this nation, uh, more precisely the United States, and ensuring the long-term competence of the military forces. But there are greater objectives for some of these sites, long-term projects. Some of this technology is capture technology is advanced. We do not understand what it is that is um, in our possession. And so, one thing to keep in mind is the scale. The scale of these operations are minuscule. They are tiny compared to the mainstream activity that occurs. So this should be kept in mind. The other thing is very strict compartmentalization. So they are aware of the potential value and potential application of certain um, knowledge. It's more than just the material itself. It is the knowledge of and the knowledge that can be gained from understanding a functional system. But this takes a long time in many cases. So such projects are, by very nature, designed in a way that they are immune not just to, let's say, warfare or natural disaster, but human disaster. It is very practical. They don't wish for change in the winds of politics to compromise something that is monumentally important, not just for one nation, but for mankind itself, such as the order of these projects. So much of the veil of secrecy is by absolute necessity. There is no good or evil. It is just a matter of practicality, efficiency, and planning for success.
Mhm.
And so this is just the general overview of this entire grid. So this is the information on the very top of the list that's coming into my consciousness. Now, of course, human weakness has not been out evolved fully. So the same susceptibility to greed, lust for power exists among all humans. And so, of course, corruption is possible where free will exists. And again, there are checks and balances placed within the structure of such programs to minimize this as far as possible. So, um, yes, I think that would be a really, really nice intro to what we're going to be looking at in more detail.
Yes, because these seem to be what was the map originally was of underground facilities and tunnels of the structures that were built out in secret. And this map was to sort of map out these locations because the general public deserves to know. And this map is from the 1980s, 1990s, um, as far as I could tell. And it's of military underground subterranean bases and facilities. And it's a networked system that is connected by these locations. And I cleaned it up. I put in the names of the states, and I also put red dots beside and under the black circles and dots that represent these secret facilities in the US so that we can easier look at this map and see, okay, so say for example, if we're looking at Colorado, if we're looking at Denver, what's underneath Denver? In that spot, if we're looking at Colorado Springs, what's underneath that to easily delineate the locations with the names of the towns, the places, just for understanding of what we're going to be looking at in a deeper session in part two. So this is an intro to this remote sensing project, and we're doing open remote sensing of looking at the maps and seeing what's underground in these base locations. And we're going to see in more detail what they do and how they do it in the next session.
Almost, and also something worth mentioning, um, the very presence and existence of these facilities. This is nothing new to humanity. Wherever there is a threat of loss of air superiority, and so many may think that flight did not exist before the uh, invention of the first airplane. We have to go further back in history where flight is absolutely present in the form of different objects, namely the Vimana. These now go back, say, 25, 30,000 years with evidence of advanced engineering. These have made it into the documentation of the Indian culture, but all sorts of these existed. And now there's also evidence of subterranean cities, citadels, all over the globe. Um, this type of approach is foreseeing the probability of loss of air superiority. So these structures are resistant against invasion of all sorts. And so now we should stop thinking about something that flies, burning dinosaurs, right? That's what they like. That's the jargon many pilots like to use. They hit the afterburners and said, okay, I just burned a dinosaur. These are different types of technologies. And so if you are tasked with the safety and protection of a nation, but beyond that, an entire planet, you would consider the probability of invasion or warfare from more advanced opponents. So going underground is a very safe way to use the structure of our planet itself to our advantage. So
Mhm.
therefore, they go underground.
Yes, as civilizations advance, they gain an understanding of the hidden world and that you can go into pockets of subterranean reality and start to bore out tunnels and create with machines, special boring machines. They can literally carve out the rock,
Yes.
and it is literally the material becomes like glass, the
You just read my
walls.
mind. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
So it can create underground bases, literal bases, where you can build buildings and locations with full-on security. And you can use holographic technology to mask the entrances to these facilities. So you're to most people, it'll look like a mountain or a field or just nothing is there because holographic technology is used to mask these places, or there's a no-fly zone where you can't fly over in these
Yes.
very remote locations.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Yes.
So it's quite specific how it's done and created.
There's a keen and sharp logic behind every single thing. It's not accidental. It's done a certain way because it fulfills certain objectives optimally. It
Hmm.
would be interesting to see if any type of portal technology is available to, let's say, the more mainstream um, world powers. Although the evidence of this is not present. Seems the old school stuff is being used. No exotic material or approaches seem to be used by any of the nations on Earth so far. So it seems that even if they have cracked certain technologies, mass production still remains a problem. So the number and the scale, again, I want to emphasize this, the scale of such, let's say, research and manufacturing is going to be minuscule. So we most certainly have a limitation in what we can do with let's say, um, foreign technology.
Mm-hmm. And if they are producing these portals and portal technology, we can look in further detail in the next session in these underground base locations and see if they're manufacturing portal tech, studying it, using
That
it.
would be very interesting. So there's all sorts of information about different ancient stargates or portal technology being used. Some of them are strictly, let's say, bound or locked to a geographical location. But it would be interesting to know if this has been successfully reproduced. So looking at the vitality of humanity, trade is always an excellent thing. So
Mm.
if trade with other, let's say, conscious and sentient beings becomes possible in the mid future, or maybe in the next 1 or 2 centuries, this would greatly benefit humanity in terms of abundance, quality of life, lifespan itself. And so this would be the first step towards that. Although it might be in a very tiny scale as we speak, but once the code is cracked, then it becomes financially viable to steamroll these kinds of things. Of course, money speaks, seems to be the language most of us understand. So if there's profit to be gained, that would be an amazing thing. But then, because of this potential increased flow of trade, it will benefit everybody.
Mm-hmm. And a quick question. This is on a lot of people's minds right now. What's happening with the drones? Why are there so many drone sightings in New York, New Jersey, Virginia, the UK, over the UK bases? What is behind these drones? Who's doing this?
Okay, so the drones themselves are mainstream. Well, not mainstream. You can't go into an electronics store and buy one of these. They would be typically the size of an automobile. Powerful engines and their load-bearing structures. Of course, we've seen the application of these in the recent year or two in terms of warfare. They are very capable devices. But now comes the question, why? Why in such large numbers? So first of all, this is not a civilian doing this. Uh, it's a concentrated and coordinated effort of having a presence. And so, of course, they can be programmed to fly in very complex swarms, creating all sorts of geometry with their illuminated structure. Now, again, going back to why. Why fly your entire inventory of drones over certain locations? What is trying to be basically covered? That's the term. So, if a certain group of beings saying, okay, you know what? We're going to bring our ships over major cities and just sit there very peacefully. Well, everybody's going to see it. How do you make it believable as human activity? You overload the consciousness of people with lots and lots and lots of drones. So it's pretty much drones. Some of them malfunction and fall out of the sky, and people take photographs. When they see the real deal, then there's less excitement. There's less will to accept the real deal as something that is coming from perhaps another realm or domain. So it's overloading the consciousness of the population with something very mundane. So when they actually see the real deal is probably AI generated or it's Photoshop or it's whatever. So this is the deal. So this same strategy applies to every field of truth. There's no shortage of truth. You can go onto Amazon or any other online store and buy the collection of human spiritual teachings in one afternoon. But then there is equivalent of 5,000 channels pumping garbage that looks so much better and more entertaining. So it's basically watering down the soup. So even if you get a little bit of goodies here or there, it becomes much less significant.
Mm. So it's almost like a show to prepare us for a bigger show. So is this the US military doing it, or is it a different source with these drones over the US?
It's not preparing us for a show. It's desensitizing us from the real thing.
Mm,
As if you look up and you see something with glorious flashing lights and you say, oh, these goddamn drones again.
mm.
That's the approach. Because I guarantee you, amongst these, a very small fraction is the real deal. Now, we're not limited to these orchestrated events whatsoever. There are many, let's say, protocols to ask for presence of these beings within physical or, let's say, semi or quasi-physical state. Go out nighttime, almost before dawn, do a little meditation, consciously project your presence and openness to receive a little sign for confirmation. About 30% of the time, there are visible responses, sometimes higher percentages, depending on what protocol is used. If there are a greater number of people co-creating in the generation of this message of consciousness, these are absolutely possible. So we're not limited to, let's say, non-human initiated contact. We are the initiators. This is our home. So if we invite someone, sometimes the invitation is accepted.
So these drones are typically man-made, the bigger ones, or are they non-man-made as well?
All man-made, all man-made. Nothing exotic about them whatsoever. They're very advanced, very capable, cutting edge, all built pretty much for the purpose of warfare. So these are big machines, heavy machines, but nothing extraordinary about them. So you can buy smaller versions, battery-powered versions quite easily.
Or the bigger ones are manufactured somewhere else in companies or in secret and then launched to sort of show us what the latest technology is and then kind
Correct.
of
Correct.
distract from the other stuff that's out there.
Right, but again, this is not entirely new. So you would see this kind of thing, maybe let's say in the next upcoming big global event would be Christmas or the change of the calendar year, where each city really breaks the bank into showing how glorious their city is. And so we see these, and of course, there's going to be the use of drones.
Mhm. It's everybody showing up to the party to experience something or explore something and seeing how humanity responds to it.
That's very probable. Now, something about these, let's say, more regular drones is that they do not have endurance, meaning that they'll run out of gas or their batteries are going to go flat pretty quickly. So if something is sticking in the sky for a week, then you're onto something that is out of the ordinary. We don't have any aircraft that can sustain flight for that long. If they show up for 20 minutes, do their little dance in the sky, and then they're gone, oh, that's probably something much more mundane. So
Mhm.
we're looking at events that are either very short in duration or very long. Anything around 5, 10 minutes, you can immediately eliminate from the pool of information.
So these bigger ones, these bigger warlike drones that are the size of cars, that are circular spheres with fixed wings, those can hang about for 12 hours and
Correct.
observe and surveil.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and more traditional structures where aerodynamics has been optimized. So a fixed wing, they could probably sustain flight about a day. That seems to be the limitation of what you can do with something that is burning some sort of a fossil fuel. Batteries are most certainly not there yet. So yes, if something is there for over a day, or with response to your consciousness, comes in and out momentarily in a way that is unmistakable. So these two categories are of interest. If you see something flying from one horizon, becoming visible, flying at a slow speed, and then doing some maneuvers, and then it disappears, beyond the horizon, where the lights go off, that's most certainly something made by man. But if something blinks into reality out of nowhere, it's not there, it's there, does something that defies understanding of our physics, and then goes, okay, that's something. And these are very, very regular, very frequent.
Well, I've had that happening to me since 2018, where I've had triangular shaped drones materialize out of nowhere about 8 p.m. until 3 a.m. or 11 p.m. And it just hovers there and it watches, then it dematerializes and goes back somewhere from where it comes. What is your sense? Is that man-made or is that other non-human?
So we must be careful not to mistake these for something that is more mundane. It's often possible to see satellites with the naked eye. And so
Mhm.
these have straight line trajectories, constant velocity. Now, if you see something flying and it suddenly shifts, like, say, 90 degrees, that is exotic. So we must be careful with how the shape of the vessel, well, many shapes can be configured. There's lots of also um, craft that are using foreign technology. Earlier versions, some of them actually had problems within flight. So these have all been seen. Certain ones would have been perfected somewhat. So again, interpreting the exact nature of these must be done cautiously.
Mm.
Could be something completely Earth-based. We don't want to overstretch and make critical errors in judgment.
Definitely. Like this is always triangular. It always has a blue light and two other blue lights and kind of glowing orange in the middle. It's never flying in a straight line. It's hovering and moving about side to side, up, down, and likes to stay high in the altitude and above the tree line and above people's houses. And it could, if I look at it, it just slightly moves away or it stays there for me to look at it. And I telepathically, I'm here. My presence is here. So I get that
Mhm.
it's something of an advanced nature. It's not a satellite.
Agreed. Agreed. That's probably the go-to method. If it is something of, let's say, sufficient evolution, non-Earth based, it would have capability to understand thought patterns. So if it responds to polite telepathic requests of a change in direction or change in visual configuration or color, and it responds, then that is much more likely to be non-Earth based. We have access to many exotic technologies, both generated by ourselves. We are wonderful, brilliant, and capable, inventive beings. So just because it is not publicly known does not necessarily mean that it is, let's say, non-Earth based. Although, again, a very small proportion of these may take advantage of things that have been gifted to us, or we have gifted it to ourselves as in pew pew, shooting it out of the sky. Um, but however, the ones that are initiated through the self, I'm talking about us people. There's nothing there, nothing's going on. You do your meditation, suddenly there's a response to your polite invitation. Hangs around long enough, you ask for change of direction. It does. Change of color, it does. But then it goes away, and then five come back, or 20 come back. Okay, that's now something that's an oddball. Statistically speaking, that is significant. But something showing up flying, you can hear an audible buzz. If it looks like a drone and it buzzes like a drone, it's probably a drone.
Yeah, this is quiet. This is hovering. It materializes, dematerializes out of space and time, like it goes into hyperspace back wherever it comes from, so makes no noise. And it tries to be very discreet, always discretion. And my mother noticed it, and it seemed to interact with my mother quite a bit. It likes my mother, and she said to me this. Um, Finally, these drone sightings from New York have started to reach mainstream media, and my mom said, "Oh my goodness, this is like we've had drones or something like it hovering above our houses since 2018. I've seen it, but it's silent and it hovers. It's not like a usual drone." And I'm like, "You see, Mom, that's the distinction. It might be
Correct.
human made and it might not be human made. You gotta use
Agreed.
critical
Agreed.
thinking to figure it
Correct.
out."
Correct. And so this making it into the mainstream media, most certainly in attempt to dilute the significance of these events. If there's, let's say, 20 reported events of quite regular drones, and then one of them is actually exotic, it kind of gets diminished. So I think that's what's really going on in general right now. Some of these are the actual real deal.
Mhm.
And then there's an awareness that certain events are about to occur, so they swarm the sky with regular propeller-driven drones, or try to say, okay, this is all ours. Nothing to see here, people. Go back to your cartoons and your Cheetos and so on.
Because there's non-human ones that are of extraterrestrial origin, disks, orbs,
Correct.
spheres that come out of
Correct.
motherships, or are just,
Correct.
consciousness programmed and piloted by beings. They're not in these probes or
Correct.
non-human drones, but they are piloting it with thought consciousness and directing it to surveil the planet to see what's going on. Our evolution, our ascension, how far have we gotten? Up to what state are we in? Are we ready for full on open disclosure and communication? All of them appear suddenly, the motherships, and it's like time to make contact, cultural exchange, learn about all the species, or what point are we in this evolution? So they have their own drones and craft that can come in and look at this, how far we've progressed. And some of them are doing that.
Correct. So this is also this is probable. Um, so we have to wait and see if this develops into something that cannot be so easily um, simulated with regular available technology, off-the-shelf technology. Otherwise, a shining light in the night sky is not sufficient to make a absolute 100%, judgment. This is definitely not new human. No, no, no. We need greater scale, greater consistency in a way that it is impossible to replicate. Something the size of, let's say, an entire city appears much closer to the surface where hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of people are able to photograph it and document it. That's what we are looking for. So far, this may be a soft introduction if in fact there are a small proportion of these that are non-human. This may be just a gentle introduction. Hello, people of Earth. What's going on? And then, of course, there are those that are invested in the status quo, swarming the skies with regular drones just to dilute the whole thing, perhaps out of a mutual cooperation between the governors of the world and these non-humans. So nobody gets shocked, because that's the potential. Also, maybe people go into a frenzy, start to start reverting to caveman behavior, eating each other. We don't want that either. So, it's a complex situation. But for now, I can safely say um, the very vast majority are most certainly man-made.
Hmm. And even some of this map, like in Nevada, it shows a disk besides Tonopah. Then in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it shows another disk beside these bases. And then Albuquerque, from Albuquerque going to Texas shows another disk. So some of these drones might be manufactured in these base locations, or like Wyoming, Riverton shows another disk. Some of these drones might be coming out of these bases, and it's experimental technology, seeing how humans
Correct.
respond to it.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
that too. So many possibilities to explore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for now, let's keep an open mind and keep our healthy skepticism. Many, many things have down to earth explanations, and then one in a thousand, one in 10,000 is something really special and spectacular. So if in fact there is an attempt at, let's say, disclosure, we need something that is undeniable, something that cannot be diluted with the presence of, let's say, regular technology, maybe even cutting edge technology, something that is undeniable. So far, in my understanding, this is not present. So it may be some sort of a, attempt at social engineering, maybe a study on the reaction of people. These have gone on, maybe just gauging the temperature, see how the general public react. As far as I know, it's with humor and amusement. Nobody's losing their mind, nobody's going crazy, thinking it's the end of days. So if that's the objective, it seems that as a collective, humanity has dealt with this one considerably well. We've behaved in a civilized way. Everybody's doing their thing. Nobody's going bonkers. Good. This wasn't the case long ago. People would actually go berserk. Social order would be threatened, but it seems no, everybody's relaxed. Everybody's doing their thing, no problem.
Well, there is awareness that UFOs, UAPs are real. There's meetings in Congress held about it. There's
Correct.
more organizations formed to study these things. So human awareness has gone beyond, we don't know what that is. It's up in the sky, something is floating above. People are starting to learn about different civilizations and that we're not alone, that humanity is not alone in this universe. That is in our consciousness. So it's perfectly acceptable to think, okay, this might be ours, man-made, or it might be off-world from some other advanced civilization, and it's here to
Agreed.
explore.
Agreed. Agreed. I think that we can perhaps, agree that would be amongst the main objectives of this whole these series of events, that people are actually okay with it.
Mhm.
Right? There's no threat of danger to the masses or disorder. That's really good. Now, if that's the only outcome of this, everybody knows that everybody's pretty okay, pretty cool. It's not going to cause mass hysteria or anything of that nature. Now, this is confirmed. Yeah, so good. It's a move in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing the map. And honestly, here in Canada, British Columbia, we've seen these things since 2018. The neighbors don't blink an eyelash. They honestly, it's something in the sky floating at night, comes in the evening for surveillance or to have a look. Might be weather stuff, might be something else, advanced technology. They don't really question it too much. It's like seems to be okay. That's just part of air traffic.
Like a flock of geese flying in the sky. The geese
Yeah.
are flying, and so something else is flying in the sky. You know what? I've got stuff to do. I've got to be somewhere at some time, right? So that's good. It's becoming more down to earth.
Well, it's like
Excellent.
yeah, it's like airplanes and helicopters, and eventually we're going to have hover cars, and perhaps this stuff is introducing what's going to be part of just regular sky traffic. It's just part of everyday life. Right now, it's just showing up at night as test runs. Then it shows up during the day, and then we're told, well, it's just advanced technology we had, or it was this, or it was that, and it's normal.
I certainly hope that it becomes financially profitable. That seems to be definitive in great mobilization of our kind, humanity. So if we find out that, let's say, there's a certain mineral on the surface of the moon, it'll cost us this much to get up there and mine the stuff. It'll cost us this much to get it back. But oh boy, we're getting a tenfold profit margin. Okay, now we're in business. So perhaps this is what's really needed, the potential for financial growth. But again, these would perhaps involve um, our liberation from burning fossil fuels. The fossil fuels are not the best way to sustain ourselves. They're running out anyway. So perhaps it really is time, if such things exist, in a way that can be mass produced. Now is the time, really. We're
Mhm.
choking ourselves to death. Anybody living in a major city will know this. The quality of air is abysmal, causing all sorts of illnesses and diseases, especially amongst children.
Mhm.
Now, if this can be rolled out in the next 50 years, now is the time. Hey, wonderful people, we actually have this. And so people are okay with this. Many technologies start out in secret, initially used for warfare, then it becomes something incredibly expensive, only billionaires can afford, and then eventually down the line, everybody benefits. So if this is the start of a, let's say, 50-year disclosure, I'm excited. I think it's an amazing thing.
And if it runs on plasma, it's even better because 0 point, for the greater good of humanity, that is for the best with this technology.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so the fact that um, the cosmos is teeming with life, you just need to meditate once or twice to come into contact with these sentient beings. This is undeniable, and through the scientific method, it is repeatable. So life is not just in the physical domain. The cosmos is teeming with life. And so, naturally, the conclusion from this would be that many are aware, including those that are tasked with let's say, the governance of society. And so, once it becomes financially profitable, then we're good to go. So, I think that needs to be demonstrated to enough entrepreneurs. So, I think all in all, the outcome of this is positive. First of all, people are ready, and then perhaps something is being prepared for um, to be unveiled. That is also positive.
Mhm. And even going beyond the finances, 0 point technology and making it available for everybody, where it doesn't cost thousands of dollars to get access to this, to clean up the planet, to get rid of
Sure.
pollution, to have clean air, clean water, and to have access to plasma technology that everybody can have a hover car or a hover vehicle going beyond the EVs, even beyond the battery powered ones. So that doesn't go to the landfill, to the batteries, to the waste where it's hard to recycle that. Even going beyond that stuff and just
Mm, I would personally like this. like to see this implemented for the poorest sections of humanity. Clean drinking water is a massive problem. And so, if we have abundant energy, we can desalinate ocean water. That's a massive achievement. So, we shouldn't take for granted the absolute blessing that is clean, drinkable water in our taps. This is not something everyone in this world has. But again, even the smallest increase in energy is going to bring people out of extreme poverty. That is
Mhm.
still a thing. Now, we've seen success in many, many parts of the world. Let's say in Asia, in parts of Eastern Europe. We used to have, let's say, 50 years ago, there used to be extreme poverty. Now, that is not a thing anymore, let's say in the European continent. People have a much greater standard of life, and that's due to availability of energy.
Mhm.
So I'm mostly looking forward to the most those in the greatest levels of poverty to benefit. I'm happy riding a bicycle to work or walking, and even better, staying at home doing it remotely, like we're doing right now.
Mhm.
This is now a possibility. And so I don't mind if there are no hover cars, as long as every one of our species has clean drinking water. That is the biggest objective. So many people die because of waterborne diseases. Now,
Mhm.
if you have water, also you have crops. So water is life right now. That is our number one problem. Number two comes air. So if fossil fuels go out, the planet heals itself. This is evident through cities that host the Olympics. They ban cars for 2 weeks and suddenly the birds are back. You can breathe without choking to death, And a great example, Olympics in Beijing. The smog is so heavy you can't see beyond 100 meters. You
Mhm.
can't see. And so they stop the cars and voila, uh, air is
And
clean.
and what I meant by hover cars is like they're not powered by oil or fuel, they're powered by plasma, which is clean. So it doesn't create waste and it doesn't pollute if we go, or it's not batteries, it's not electric powered batteries that go to the landfill. It's actually plasma, clean plasma that runs it. That's what I mean by hover cars. So if
Understood.
they're
Understood.
in if they're in the air, they're not causing pollution. Going
Clean.
that way, clean.
Correct. Yes, agreed. 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 Agreed.
Hmm.
And so that's also going to immediately have an effect on the average life expectancy of humanity.
Hmm.
So many types of illnesses are becoming more frequent, uh, and nobody really wants to look at the elephant in the room, which is pollution. Absolutely. Yes, many of the substances that are the byproduct of our industries are toxic.
Hmm.
Now, maybe in small doses the body can handle it, but if it's in the air you breathe day in, day out, this is going to have an impact. So there's so much to look forward to. If in fact this is the beginning of something extended, maybe they want to do it in a decade, and there are signs of this. Footage being released from actual fighter aircraft on let's say they've got it on radar, they've got it on heat, let's say a heat camera. The ship is picking it up, the other aircraft is picking it up, and you've got the conversation of the pilot saying, okay, I'm seeing this thing. It just does stuff I don't understand. And then they bring the pilots, okay, what else do you want these poor people to do? They're pretty much doing somersaults for you. So now the rest is upon us to keep an open mind. The possibility is there.
Hmm.
Let's be happy with this. And so I suppose we're going to be presented with other drops of information. Mm, Again, I think yourself and I and the wonderful people that are listening to this are among a minority of people that know there is more. This is not true for everyone. So we have to slow down for the rest to arrive. We can't leave people behind. That wouldn't be fair.
No.
So, all in all, I'm a natural optimist, even in the darkest times, I suppose. My upbringing during the longest war of the 20th century does that. That there's always hope. There's always hope, and I see beautiful things coming for us as a collective, as humanity. Brilliant things.
And staying calm and staying peaceful and grounded, no matter what we're seeing in the sky or what's appearing or what they're trying to test over us or under us or above us, just staying grounded in spiritual evolution and ascension of the soul, wonderful soul beings that we are. We can be healthy, we can be happy, because we can create our own realities. We can
Yes,
change
absolutely.
timelines. Some people say you cannot change a timeline, but you can just by positive thinking, by creating your own world and bringing that world into physical reality. That's
Yes,
manifestation. That is changing timelines and realities of
agreed.
co-creation.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's energy, that's knowledge, and that's power that you can change on the energetic scale into the physicality so it's no longer so dense. Because you're working with a quantum, you're working with the holographic universe, both of those into physicality and changing the energy in your world. That's
Agreed.
manifesting a different destiny and a different timeline to change what you don't like, to make it better from a negative to a positive. People always ask me, how can we do that? Just with your thoughts, you can do it by meditating for 30 minutes and shifting reality. You can do that with changing something you don't like to a better outcome, a more positive one. That's the thought consciousness of you interacting with the world and with the universe to make that change. Co creation.
Absolutely. Co-creation with the river of consciousness. I like to think of it as tapping into the current. That flow of creation is eternal. So we're learning how to sail in this current or flow. And sometimes there are limitations within us that prevent us from extending our sails and going places. So control over the self, mastering your own thoughts and emotions, so you are not blown around like a tumbleweed in the wind, so that you at least have a sense of calm and then start listening or observing, getting these correct data points. We figure it out pretty quickly. You have probably assisted countless wonderful people along this path, getting them started. Okay, buddy, you're healthy. Now this is the way. Meditate, calm the mind, and start learning the language of this currents of creation. We can all do it.
Yes, and it's coming into our own creator selves, frequency wise, soul wise, and physically as well. This all is
Yeah.
interconnected. As creators, we can create anything, and nothing is impossible if you remove limitation and you're open minded to possibilities. You can create anything you want by allowing yourself to create and explore and play creatively. Imagination and creation is part of the creativity of that manifestation play and enjoyment of the energy.
Yes, 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 yes. Being a creator means that, in fact, it is us that sets the river into motion. Otherwise, without consciousness, there is nothing. That is the property we attribute to the beloved source of all things, the high point, the source of the stream. But as aspects of that, we are also the source of the stream. So, in fact, we are the ones setting things in motion. So, that is another great understanding of how all this works. So, I think it would be appropriate for us and all the wonderful, wonderful people that have stayed with us so far to set this into motion. as an intention to manifest the highest good of all of us, the distribution of knowledge that will help the highest good of all of us in a peaceful way, in a non-destructive way, in a way that would benefit everybody, that will not discriminate. And so setting this into motion and speaking it into existence.
And exploring yourself to your highest potentials, creation abilities, capabilities. Just trying fun things and seeing the beauty that comes out of that exploration. That is the pure magic of the soul and the play of creation. That
That is beautiful.
that consciousness interaction of the infinite possibilities and creative ways you can play in the universe and become your highest potential for whatever you want to be.
Agreed. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, and thank you so much for
Thank you so much.
exploring this wonderful introduction to
Yes,
our research sensing project that we will
yes,
continue in part two.
agreed, agreed. I really look forward to it. And thank you. Thank you for being the wonderful you.
And thank you for being the wonderful you that taps into the energy of the universe and creates beautiful wisdom knowledge that you're sharing with our beautiful audience today and always.
Thank you. So, to be continued,
Yes,
which makes me happy.
me too. Well, thank you so much.
Take
Blessings
care.
and
All the very
enjoy.
best to you. Have a
To you
great
too.
evening. Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.